Hello everyone. In this talk, we present our IROS 2020 paper, Heterogeneous Vehicle Routing and Teaming with Gaussian Distributed Energy Uncertainty. This is both at the University of Michigan, and this research is supported by the Automotive Research Center. Complex robotic missions nowadays usually contain multiple heterogeneous subtasks and require different vehicles and robots to work in teams in an uncertain environment. For instance, here is an example of a military mission that contains 4 subtasks at different locations, and there are 9 vehicles for our selection. Resilient teaming under uncertainty, in other words, being able to optimize and switch team configurations for different tasks resiliently, is crucial for these complex multi-robot missions. Most of the previous multi-robot decision-making algorithms handle problem types like vehicle routing, where routes are determined for one type of vehicles to complete one type of tasks. Task allocation, where single robot tasks are assigned to vehicles. Multi-agent control, where a team of heterogeneous robots is organized to complete one task together. The heterogeneous teaming problem considered in this work, if compared to vehicle routing and task allocation, considers heterogeneous vehicles teaming, and if compared to multi-agent control, it is one level higher, which focuses on inter-team level planning. This paper develops a framework to encode vehicle and task heterogeneity for various practical problems, and proposes 2 stochastic vehicle routing models that incorporate Gaussian distributed energy costs. Let's now formally define the stochastic heterogeneous teaming problem in this work. Suppose there are multiple heterogeneous vehicles and robots for us to select from, and there are multiple heterogeneous tasks like these distributed in an area. There are uncertainties in the environment. The goal here is to form robotic teams to complete all the tasks, minimize some objective function, and robust to uncertainty. The uncertainty in this work is in the travel energy cost in this map, and we want to minimize the sum energy cost. Let's look at this military mission example. Our proposed framework can generate the optimal team configurations and the routes and schedules for the teams. For instance, according to a solution, we might ask a truck and 2 drones to form a team and complete this scout task. And after that, together with 3 tanks, they complete this breach task. Let's now talk about the framework. We first composed a graphical model. This is the graphical model with 3 vehicles and 2 tasks. So for each of the vehicle, we add a start and a terminal node in this graph. And for each of the tasks, we also add a task node here in this graph. As for the edges, for each vehicle and between each node pair, we add 2 directional edges. For instance, between task 1 and 2 here, there are in total 6 directional edges for the 3 vehicles in this graph. And each edge here actually corresponds to an actual path in this map. So once we have such a graphical model, we attach a binary variable to each edge, which means if this binary variable is 1, then this vehicle will follow this edge, otherwise it is 0. So now the main idea is, if we can express the objectives and constraints with these variables, then we get an optimization problem. And in addition, it's a mixed integer program. If the constraint and objectives are linear, then we have exactly this form. So now if we can solve such a problem and get a solution, then we will have a teaming plan. Why? Suppose after solving the problem, we get a solution where these variables are marked to 1. Then we have a plan where we first ask vehicle 1 and 2 to form a team and complete this task 2 together. After that, vehicle 1 still needs to go to task 1, complete it, and then terminate at its own terminal node. The objective function of this problem is to minimize the energy cost. and the constraints include all the tasks are completed, and there are time, energy, and heterogeneity constraints and other basic constraints. The natural questions to ask next are how to form the energy constraint and heterogeneity constraints. To be more specific, how to get the estimation for these uncertain edge costs, and how to encode the heterogeneities of the vehicles and the tasks in such a model. So let's first talk about the energy uncertainty model. The goal of this model is to generate the estimation for the path cost here between different locations. Suppose we can take some samples online or from earlier explorations. Then we can estimate a Gaussian process map for each of the vehicles. It's something like this. Suppose this map is for this chalk, and a cell in a Gaussian process map is a Gaussian random variable. And then we can use A-star algorithm to generate the minimum expected energy cost path between different locations, and then sum up the cell values to get the path cost. Therefore, the cost of this path here in this map are also random variables, Gaussian random variables, and the uncertainty are encoded in this standard deviation. Let's now talk about the heterogeneity model. We first define a capability set, a vehicle set, and a task set. A capability is a descriptor that describes one type of vehicle's property. For instance, here we have 8 capabilities, including scout, move fast, transport materials, move quietly, shoot smoke, break barriers, clear mines, and armor. And then we can define a capability vector for each of the vehicle, which is a row here. For instance, for an armored vehicle, it has 1 unit of A1, 2, 3, and 8. This means this armed vehicle can scout, move fast, transport materials, and it has a little bit armor. A tank, as we can imagine, has a much heavier armor capability than an armored vehicle. Therefore, we can define this A8 to something much larger, like 20. Once we have these, we can define the task requirement functions for all of the tasks. For instance, suppose task 1 is scout and then escape. Then we can define the task requirement function like this. So it's a conjunction of binary operations. We require capability 1 larger than 1. That means we require the team to have scout capability. We also require capability 2 larger than 2 or capability 4 larger than 1. So this means after the scout, in order to escape, we also require the team to either move fast or move quietly. The input of this requirement function, for instance this alpha A1, is the sum capability on A1 of the vehicle team that visit task M1. So once we have these two models, we can form these energy and heterogeneity constraints. So to be more specific, we require the vehicle's energy cost to be smaller than its fuel capacity, and we require for all of the tasks, the team visits it can drive its requirement function to 1. The good news here is all of the constraints are linear. Therefore, we have exactly this form. However, the energy cost here is uncertain. So, how to deal with this uncertainty? It also means a part of these A, B, and C matrices are random variables. Therefore, this will make the problem a stochastic mixed integer program. If there is no uncertainty, then we want to minimize the sum energy cost plus some penalty on the time, subject to the constraint that the sum energy cost of a vehicle is smaller than its fuel capacity. However, since these edge costs are all uncertain, one thing we can do is to ensure that the probability of these to be larger than some confidence level. And in the objective function, we instead minimize the expectation of the energy cost. So this makes the problem a trans-constraint program. However, there are still two problems. First, we need to define this confidence level manually, but there is a compromisation between the robustness and the energy optimality. Another problem is if we define this number to something too large, then this problem will become infeasible because this constraint is too strict. Therefore, we come up with a penalty form called stochastic program with recourse. It considers the additional cost of a failure in advance. For instance, according to the solution, we might ask vehicle K to complete all these tasks. Well, on this edge, this vehicle K might run out of energy and suddenly fails here. So at this moment, we can define something called recourse actions. For instance, we can ask another vehicle of the same type to replace this vehicle and complete all the following tasks. And also we can ask another vehicle to rescue this failed vehicle. Therefore, this failure introduces these two additional costs, including the rescue cost and the replace cost. A stochastic program with recourse wants to minimize the original energy cost plus the time cost plus the expected rescue and replace cost associated with such a failure. Therefore, the SPR model makes compromisations automatically based on whether it is more expensive to avoid a failure or recover from that failure. We provide two branch and cut algorithms in this paper to solve these models. Extensive computational experiments shows that the algorithms are scalable to the number of vehicles, but not very scalable to the number of tasks. A maximum of 30 tasks can be solved within 500 seconds at this moment. Increased heterogeneity leads to faster convergences. So let's now come back to the military mission of explore and bridge. Still these capability sets, and we have in total 18 vehicles of 6 types, including armed vehicle, scout vehicle, tank, striker, earth mover, and minesweeper. And we have in total 14 tasks distributed in an area, and these tasks are of 7 types, including scout, quiet scout, cover bridge point with smoke, create secured lanes, and so on. And we define the task requirement function accordingly. Here are the results. Our framework is able to generate team configurations for all of these tasks as well as the schedules and paths for the teams. Let's take task 4 as an example. It is create secured lanes, and the requirement function requires 1 unit of capability 6, 7, and 8. So this task requires break barriers, clear mines, and then use heavy armor to secure that cleaned lane. Both CCP and SPR models put a vehicle 1, a vehicle 5, and a vehicle 6 in the team. So we have an armed vehicle that's able to achieve the armor capability, and we have an earth mover and a minesweeper that are able to break barriers and clear mines. That means the requirements of this task M4 are fulfilled. And actually, for all of the tasks, their requirements are fulfilled by these teams. Further investigations shows that both models generate more robust results than deterministic counterpart. The models consider spatial distribution, heterogeneity, and uncertainty simultaneously. These are all the part of this presentation. Thanks for your attention, and you can find more results in our paper.